next thing I know, I look up and there's a car kind of in front of me, and I clip it. Man, my car just starts flipping down the road.
Bringing you a good buddy of mine that I've been a little bit of a mentor to. I've coached him through some things, but I've been really proud about how far he's really reached down and laced his boots up and got after life. He's going to share a portion of his story that, I got to say, I was even a little shocked that he went and talked about some of the things that happened to him on his journey. Hey guys, this episode is brought to you by my friends over at Point Blank Safety Services. These are armed service guards that are all off-duty police officers. So think about it. If you ever need a security guard for your construction site, for intersection light control, lane closures on the freeways, trade shows, loss prevention, retail and bank security, wouldn't you love to have it protected by a bunch of off-duty trained officers? We all know that these guys are all looking for additional incomes to help them as they go about their career protecting our lives. Well, what a better way than to create a business, create a job that allows them to make money in their off time. So if you ever need, check out Point Blank Safety Service at pointblanksafety.com. All right, guys, so today's going to be a fun episode. I'm bringing you a good buddy of mine, Carr. We're going to talk all kinds of crazy things, and especially about what the business he's into now, and let him tell you about his story. But he's a Marine buddy of mine, so I'm sure this conversation will get crazy and wild. So, Sean, welcome to the damn show, brother. Thanks for coming on here. Tell us a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. I know we've known each other for, 4 years now. I guess, my journey in the entrepreneurial world kind of started after the Marine Corps. We started a business when we were in. It was a kind of event management, event rental company, and then we had sold that, decided to pick up all my shit, move all the way across the U.S. to Texas from South Carolina. So kind of got here, jumped in dabbled in the wealth management for, 3 years or so, which was just fun. I remember that the first time we met, you're like, hey, if you want a big boy job, come talk to me. Yeah. So anyone that knows that industry, it's a freaking grind. So I kind of burned a bunch of bridges real quick in Fort Worth. Ended up drinking a lot. And then probably in 2015 or 16, I had gotten my DUI where I flipped my car on the way back from a bar. Thought my car was just totally flat, man. And that was kind of an awakening point for me in my career. Said, I got to get out of doing this and get into something that's less stressful, but more lucrative and more fun. And that's how we're doing what we're doing now, which is helping people buy and sell companies. Nice, dude. All right, so let's recap this a little bit and dive a little bit into each one of these areas. So how old were you when you went in the Marine Corps? Let's start there. Yeah, I was 19. 19, so you were a little slow learner. Very slow. Actually, it caught me in at first. So, yeah. Right, so going at 19, you did 4 and out? 5, yeah, I did 5. Okay, 5 and out. How many tours? 2 tours, 2010, 2012. Right. Okay. I just want to give people perspective. So you get out of the Marine Corps. Were you from South Carolina? I don't think I knew that. No, I'm born and raised in West Chicago, so about 40 minutes. That's right. I knew that. Yeah. So how'd you end up in South Carolina? Duty station. Were you at Beaufort or? Yeah, technically I was in Beaufort. So it was weird. Our unit was based out of Lejeune, but we had platoons pretty much any Marine Corps base on the East Coast. What was your MOS? What was your job? Field MP, which is the opposite of a Blue Falcon, right? So I'll explain that real quick. So you have 2 sides of the MP field. You have field side and then you have state side or garrison side. Field side is pretty much a giant working party in security. So we'll do police mentoring, we'll do base security, we'll do convoy security. My last deployment, we did base security, and then we did helicopter recovery. So a helicopter goes down, where we fly out there, set up security, and then wait for somebody to go pick it up, or we'll go with the unit to go pick it up. Right on. So you get out, you end up in South Carolina. Dude, I love Beaufort. That's a great town. Yeah. Fun town. Beats the shithole of Camp Lejeune because Camp Lejeune sucks. So you get out there. What brought you to Texas?
Man, I was on terminal leave, and I didn't want to go. I saw all my buddies that were getting out, going back home, and they just weren't doing anything with their lives. And I think you know me pretty well. I'm going to do the opposite of what people tell me to do. I drove on terminal leave and visited, all my buddies from the Marine Corps. Had a buddy in St. Louis, a buddy in Kansas, and then a buddy in Dallas. So I kind of stopped in every major city from Chicago down here and then back to South Carolina. And I just kind of liked Texas. So I called up a buddy who I knew had been in the wealth management industry for a little bit. And then I went and interviewed that day, got a job offer, and decided to stay.
So we're going to talk about that particular part of your journey.
Yeah.
Okay. So you come to Texas, not knowing a damn soul other than your buddy, and
he moved.
And he moved.
2 weeks after he got a job offer in New York.
Nice. So now you're completely out here on your own, and you're trying to sell wealth management financial services.
Oh, yeah.
How'd that go?
Well, needless to say, I'm not in the industry. It was slow at first. I think the first 2 years, it kind of took me a minute to really figure out, because Fort Worth's a different market, man.
It is.
And you learn real quick that you can't just sell everybody you meet. You've got to really develop some really solid relationships. And fortunately for me, I'm kind of a laid back guy, salesperson, if you will. So that kind of helped me in the long run. So yeah, it wasn't fun. It took 3 years. I think I met my current business partner at his restaurant at the Marine Corps birthday, and he was like, "Hey, who wants to go to this Cowtown Warriors ball?" And I didn't know anything about it. So I was like, "Yeah, sure." Well, how much are the tickets? He's like, $250 a piece, and I had like probably $550 in my account. $550 to my name. I was like, "Fuck it, I'll go." Spent my last $500 going to the Cowtown Warriors ball, and then the next year I got voluntold into pretty much running the operations of the organization.
Yeah. So we're going to dive into that. I'm glad you brought that up. So you spend your last $500 to go to this highfalutin dog and pony show, badass event, but it brings out the who's who in brass of Fort Worth.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was at the inaugural one, and I probably had too many adult beverages at that thing, which I think I've had at every ball since. I think at the first one there was 5 or 6 generals there. It was a pretty high-power event. You enjoyed it so much that when they were looking for volunteers and they said, "Hey, you're going to do this," that you didn't buck the system too much.
Pretty much.
You basically, I don't want to say ran the whole thing, but made sure the whole thing functioned for the next 3 years, 4 years?
Yeah, basically will be up until next year. So I got a guy that we picked out, James Peterson, who I think you've known.
Yeah.
He's stepping into my spot, so I'm able to basically took my job and divided it up among 5 people because I'm just that awesome, I guess.
I don't know if I'd go that far, but so tell us a little bit about the Cowtown Warriors Ball. What is it?
Yeah, so Cowtown Warriors, man, it's an awesome organization. So we do an annual event every year for wounded, disabled, ill, and injured veterans in North Texas. So the nice part about that is they can either be from North Texas or live here currently, and we're able to, in our bylaws, kind of help these veterans out with pretty much all the needs that aren't being met by other charities. So like last year we had the current commandant of the Marine Corps come and speak. That was awesome. I think the year before that we had General Allen, who is the Supreme Allied Commander at NATO. And then we've always had, the Secretary of Defense, Gordon England. He's always our guest of honor up until last year. Couldn't make it because, those guys are super busy with everything going on in the world. So,
well, my favorite was, I think it was the second year you brought out my buddy, General Pittman.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, Pittman's a badass. And if you guys don't know General Pittman's story, please do me a favor and just go Google General Pittman and see what he did in 1972 with the damn helicopter. It's pretty badass.
Yeah, you don't get much more motive than that.
Well, real quick, just because I love the story. The dude commandeered a civilian helicopter to help take out a sniper on a building in a civilian situation, and he did it without any permission. It's a badass story. You should definitely go Google and read it. And one of the things that I love is one of the guys that helped come up with the concept of Cowtown Warriors ball is his kind of thought process isn't to make these guys' lives better, it's to make it suck a little less.
Certainly.
So great organization. So how long were you in the financial game?
I want to say just shy of 3 years.
Right. And I know during that time you sat down and met with every Marine in the Dallas-Fort Worth marketplace. How'd you go about pulling that off?
So the early part of my kind of career, I was, doing all the networking and all that bullshit. And once you go to about 2 networking events, you realize that everyone else is just trying to sell you and you're trying to sell them, and it's kind of pointless for the most part. 90% of your chamber events. So I was like, well, this isn't working. I've got to figure out, how to get in front of good people. And I was like, what better people to meet with than, fellow vets and fellow Marines. If the worst comes to worst, you're going to have time to exchange war stories and kind of move on. So basically just kind of started connecting to everybody that had Marine in their profile on LinkedIn, and then just started reaching out and just setting meetings and trying to do some networking. And I think that's kind of how we got to where I'm at now as far as my network goes. It's all been through the Veteran Network, man, and it has delivered, a millionfold. I couldn't be more grateful for the veterans in DFW that have helped me out personally.
Right. How was the transition from the military to civilian life?
Well, that sucks. You basically go from having everything to having nothing overnight. You lose your best friends. I mean, your friends, but you don't live by them. You don't hang out with them anymore. For me, I didn't go back to my family, so it's coming here not knowing a soul. So that was rough. So there's a lot of alcohol involved, and me, I do love my whiskey. So there was that. I think that the transition itself was, looking back, more difficult than they had told you when you were getting out. So they didn't really tell you, hey, you got to go network to meet people to figure out even what you want to do in life. I kind of just jumped into something not knowing anything about it other than, hey, it can be lucrative, and I like to think I'm an okay people person.
I think everybody goes through a little bit of that. I mean, I had a little bit of lucky time on my journey because I came home to a bunch of very close friends, came back and had a job instantly working with my best friend and, his dad doing HVAC. But I know a lot of my buddies when they got out, I mean, there were several of them that were talking about going back in because they couldn't find work. People didn't understand them. They had become a completely different person almost in the process. And so they had a really, really, really rough time. And I can tell you, a couple of my buddies still haven't figured it out. They're still struggling to find their path and where they're going. Part of the reason I'm doing this show is hopefully that they start seeing the other people have figured it out and are moving forward with it. So you're sitting here by yourself, crawled into a couple of different bottles.
Oh, yeah.
And then one crazy night driving home, you smashed the ever-living shit out of your car.
Yep.
Walk us through that journey.
Yeah, so I remember exactly what was going on. So I was dating my now fiance, Olivia, who you know pretty well.
Yeah.
And I was meeting up with some colleagues at a local bar called Bronson Rock up in Keller. And strangely, I really only had, it was enough drinks to get a DUI, but I had a few drinks. And I remember texting her, and I was like, hey, can I call you? I'm on my way home or on my way over to her house. And next thing I know, I look up, and there's a car kind of in front of me, and I clip it. Man, my car just starts flipping down the road. And then, didn't have my cell phone on me when I obviously got transported to the hospital. Didn't have my cell phone on me, didn't have anything on me, no money. So and I didn't know her address, and I just moved to a different house, which I barely knew where it was. So, fortunately, I remember where she lived, so I don't know how I paid for a cab to get there. I don't know if the hospital gave me money or what. But basically, somehow got to her house. She's like, I thought you ditched me, and I walked in and covered in blood and glass and all that good stuff. And then about a year and a half later, when I actually ended up getting arrested formally, I guess, if you will. So
now, isn't that crazy? So why do you think did the cops, did they come to the hospital?
Yeah, no, I was talking to a police officer at the hospital, but I guess because it was a blood test and not a
breathalyzer
or no field sobriety test, that I was able to go home because I was talking to the guy I'm a pretty good functioning alcoholic at the time, so I talked my way out of it. But I don't know. When it was about a year and a half later, I got charged, and I called my buddies, a cop at Fort Worth PD, and I was like, hey, man, can you run my stuff to see if I got a warrant yet? And didn't. And then they ended up sending cops to my parents' house in Illinois. And my mom calls me. She thought I was dead because 2 cop cars showed up at the house. And so she calls me, and then she's like, hey, there's 2 cops here, and you know what it's about. And I was like, yeah. I'd already talked to a lawyer. We were just waiting. And so talked to the cop. The cop's like, where are you at? And I'm like, I'm in Fort Worth, Texas. He's like, what are you doing down there? I was like, I've lived down here for the last 40 years. And then he was like, well, the police officer told us to come and talk to you up in Illinois. And obviously it wasn't there. So they called down. They had that whole conversation. And then it wasn't for another couple of weeks that they actually put a warrant out. So when that warrant actually came to fruition is when I was able to turn myself in. So, yeah, that was, it was an interesting journey. For me, I'm more so a God guy myself. So that was kind of a spiritual awakening, or a massive change in my life right there was that period of time.
Well, I can tell you, J.K. Rowling, who wrote Harry Potter, has got a great saying that says, rock bottom's a foundation on which I build all my success. And I know you had a rough journey a little bit afterwards, dealing with all the shit and everything that goes through it. That's your story to share if you want. But, and everything afterwards. What happened after to get you to really start changing everything around and start focusing on, okay, I've got to take life more serious?
I don't know if that was this particular incident that started triggering it, but I started really having really bad panic attacks to where I'd end up at the hospital once a month or so. I was thinking I was dying, and I was shit, man. I was at that point. So the night of the accident, I never left Olivia's side pretty much. Man, we went to her house. She was living with her parents at the time. Because I think she just turned 15. No, I'm just kidding. It's a joke because she's about 6 years younger than I am.
It's okay. My wife's 7 years younger than I am.
Well, I figured that way I'll die like 10, 20 years before her so she can have all that money that hopefully So I pretty much, I was sitting there. I'm living, I smoked pot for about 6 months straight, man, just trying to clear myself. And that was probably not a good thing. And I'm sitting there in her room, which is probably, 10 feet by 12 feet, with my computer desk and our, full size bed. And, no, it was a queen. I'll give it a queen. So it was good enough. But, I was sitting there and I'm looking around. I'm like, man, what the fuck am I doing with my life? Didn't have a car yet at that point. It was about 2 months before I bought a car. And, I'm looking around, there's 6 people living in a 3-bedroom house, and I love my parents to death. I'm so grateful that I was able to do that. But that was my rock bottom, man. I look around, I went from owning, a business to a house to, having my own apartment, nice car, all that stuff, and then to living in my girlfriend's room with her at her parents' house. And that was 3 years ago. So it's been a crazy journey since then, man. I've been super, super grateful for everything that's happened.
You've jumped into a lot of things. I mean, you have literally said, I'm going to give this entrepreneur thing a solid flipping go, and have been dabbling and then exploding with everything you touch. I mean, some of the stuff you look at it and almost say, okay, some of this shit's just turned to gold.
Yeah.
Some of the things you're doing. How did you get into what you're doing now?
I called, my buddy Jeremy, who's my partner now. Man, I remember I was going to get a pretty big commission check, but then I had a reversal, and in the wealth management world, they take that money back. So I ended up getting a paycheck for like $27. I was like, you got to be freaking kidding me. So I was like, I can't do this anymore. Man, I was sitting in my parking lot of my office, man. I hadn't cried in, 10 years, man. I'm like, I don't know what to do. So I called Jeremy up. He had just went through some stuff with his last company, and we're like, hey, man. He's like, I'm going to this class on next Friday to learn about buying and selling businesses. I'd never heard of this before. 23 years old to 24 years old. I'd never heard about this. So called him up, he invited me out, and he's like, hey, you want to come do this with me? I said, sure, why not? And again, it was $500, and I think I had like $600 in my account. So I'm significantly more wealthy than I was at the time.
By $50.
First time I spent my first $500. Jeremy's just got a way of, if you know him, obviously, he's got a way of making people spend money.
Yep.
So ended up going to this class and learned a lot about this industry. It seemed pretty lucrative. And, I looked around and everyone in the room is, 75 years old. And I'm the youngest one there. And I'm like, okay, this could have some potential. So then we got into this and I kind of created I don't know, I guess I'll stop there and we can go from there because that was me getting into that industry, went to that class, and then we Monday hit the road going hard. So
right, so you end up paying $500. You go into a class with all these old dudes.
Yep.
And no money hardly left to your name, and now you're going to go in and buy and sell businesses.
Yep.
At any point, you look at yourself going, I'm a fucking idiot?
Man, every day. She would never say it, but because she knows I'm the stubborn one. I was the only one in the family that joined the military. But, yeah, I mean, there's so many times, there's always an easier way out. But one, being a Marine veteran, and then two, being an entrepreneur, that's just not an option. Anybody can go get a 9 to 5. It takes relatively no skill to go out and get a job. It takes a whole lot more work to grow and build a business. And man, I had enough of waiting for and relying on someone else to pay my bills. And I was just kind of over that and didn't want to deal with that anymore. So boom, here we are.
So now your job was to go find people. Well, first, find a company who wants to sell.
Yep.
And then go find somebody who's crazy enough to buy through this process.
Yeah.
I mean, did you just pick up your phone and go, okay, I'm going to call every veteran I know and see if anybody's selling a business, and then I'm going to call every veteran I know and see if anybody will buy it? Is that how it worked out?
Man, I wish I was that smart. No, I actually went and basically had to redo what I was doing before, which is hindsight is 2020, and that was pretty stupid. I talked to my brother. He told me about one of these databases like Reference USA or Info USA, those big databases, and that you can find companies. So, okay, so we were talking to a guy that he's like, hey, this is the type of company I want to buy, this industry, this size, this many employees, it's been around for this long. So with this database, you're able to plug in all that criteria. It came up with a list of 100 or 200 of these companies in Texas. And then there's this thing called an email premutator, and it basically you put in the CEO's name and it shoots out every possible email that they would probably have. So you go and, there's another website you could verify to see if it's a valid email or not. So I did that. And then we just sent pretty much a blanket email out to all these guys. We had actually a lot of traction. I guess nobody was doing it the way we were. And two of the guys we talked to happened to be veterans. And then the one that we ended up listing with was a Marine veteran. So he owned a sign company in Texas, and that was pretty cool. We had breakfast, and he telling us about his Marine Corps stories, and him and his wife had been together since he had been in the Marine Corps. And then we were searching for people to buy the company, and just so happens one of the guys I had met a few years ago had reached out. I think you'd actually introduced us the second time we had met. You're like, hey, you guys should meet. And they're like, oh yeah, we spoke on the phone. He was doing embassy duty or something.
He was an ambassador for the U.S.
Yeah, in Brazil. Yeah. Real estate investor, really cool guy. And I think we had a conversation at the Fort Worth Club, and he was like, I want to buy, a property management company. And I was like, hey, dude, statistics are about 80% of the people that want to go and buy a company don't buy what they're looking for. And that kind of sparked his interest. And then I think a couple months later, he's like, yeah, I'm really, really interested in the company. And we went from listing the company to fully funded and selling that company in less than 4 months.
And by the way, I never got my commission for talking him into going after that company.
Is that so? You recorded the conversation.
So, I mean, literally, you go from spending $500 on a workshop to turning that into a multimillion-dollar business acquisitions or business sale by not only finding the company that needs to be sold, but finding the person that ends up buying it and going through all the process.
There's a lot of tire kickers in the world, man. There's a lot of people that, I want to do this, I want to do that, but they don't actually get around to pull the trigger. And I think that was the hardest part, in getting somebody like Dan, who's the guy that bought it, in there, and he's like, yeah, I'm ready to go. he was through underwriting in the bank. The business and him were through underwriting, I think, in like 7 days.
Yeah, I mean, because just so the audience knows, I mean, Dan had stockpiled a cash amount to be prepared. He was going to buy a business. I mean, he was hell-bent on it.
Yeah.
He was, 100% sold on he was going to buy a property management company because he wanted to manage, several hundred homes, but just a property management company.
Yeah.
Sean found him and presented an opportunity to him. So what a hell of a sale, kid.
Yeah, I know, right? Everything happens for a reason, but
right.
180, man.
So now you're running this business full time.
Yeah.
Buying and selling businesses. Are you still following the same process that you started down this path with, or?
I think in any business, you start with some kind of sense of direction, and that slowly changes. It's like you starting and you have a fork in the road, and that fork in the road is going to lead you to another fork. And, you can start somewhere where you're going 180 degrees, and then, in 6 months you're going 90 degrees of that. So it's changed. A lot of our principles are the same. We're obviously super ethical and very transparent. We want to make sure all those questions are answered before we actually sell that business. So yes and no. We're marketing a little bit differently, but a lot of our processes are still pretty much the same.
Nice. So where's all this going to take you for the future part of your journey? Because I know you've done a couple more deals since then, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. How many zeros behind those deals, just so people understand?
Oh, man. 9, maybe.
Yeah, right. So a lot. I mean, you guys found a unique niche of buying and selling businesses and have really busted your ass to make sure that it turns into a lucrative business.
For sure.
Are you guys ever going to get to a point where you're teaching others how to do this?
So I think so. My partner and I, we've discussed it, and it's just a matter of when. We want to make sure that we can bring somebody. The last thing I want to do is bring somebody on. I think it's got to be a right fit, right? We wanted to bring somebody on. We want to have enough cash to pay them a decent salary, and probably start with having some back end help first, and then kind of getting those guys into. Maybe we'll have a sales force or something at some point. But yeah, I mean, this is probably just going to lead me to the next venture, and I'll probably always do this. I think it's awesome, and become a subject matter expert in a relatively short time. So yeah, we'll see where it goes.
Go back to 19 years old.
No shit.
Right? Is this where you saw yourself? I mean, did you have any idea that this is, the life you'd be living now?
I had no fucking idea. I'd be a lot more successful, right? I think that's everybody. Especially as entrepreneurs, what you're doing today is never good enough. I think that's what sets us apart from everybody else is no matter what you have or what you've done, it's not enough. And I think that's the drive that kind of keeps you going to that next thing. So, I thought I was going to be, having private helicopters and jets, which, not there yet, but.
Give it time.
Yeah.
Give it time. I think, I can't say it. It's too much of a blanket statement. What I was going to say is everybody that goes into the military usually has no fucking clue what the hell they want to do with their life.
Oh, yeah.
But I can't play it's not completely a blanket statement because some people really, the military is where they were going no matter what.
Right. Yeah, that was my intention.
Yeah, because for me, the Marine Corps wasn't really a thing until like my senior year, and I had no idea what the hell I was doing with my life.
Right.
But I can look back on some of the things I learned while I was in and go, okay, I went through that shit to prepare me for the shit I'm going through now, The guys that are just getting out of the military, that are going through the experiences you went through, what would you tell them?
Get out and meet people. Don't go back home. You've got the GI Bill if you're an enlisted guy, right? So you can live off of that GI Bill and live off of a part-time job while you're meeting people. I would say, go to a place that kind of do what I did, man. I'm going to say that because I did it, but go to a place where you don't know anybody and really challenge yourself again. I think it's going to set you up for success. You're going to be a little lonely, I guess, at first, but if you get out and start meeting people like I should have done right away, and you look for genuine friendship and you get out with other veterans, I think veterans, if you hang around other veterans, I think it's just going to help that transition. Get around guys that have been out for 10 years, 5 years, and that are doing something, not the guys that are sitting at home on their 100% disability check, which is, everyone does their own thing. Don't go and hang out with somebody that's not doing anything with their life. Go and hang out with somebody that's really striving to do something. But get out, go network, go meet people, and go get in uncomfortable situations.
I didn't have to go through that experience, but I can imagine what's going through some of these guys' heads is, I don't have a job. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I want to do. Why the hell would I go sit around with a bunch of other veterans when I have nothing to offer?
Yeah, I thought the same thing.
But the mere fact that you put yourself out there allowed you to find something that you can get behind and run with, even though you got punched in the face a couple of times by life, trying to figure it out.
That's going to happen. But, I mean, if I look back and say where I was 3 years ago, I never would have imagined that I'd come this far so quickly. So it is not necessarily overnight, but you can make huge changes in your life in 12, 24, 36 months that really will have a lasting impact on your life too. So.
Right. How much has it changed yours and Olivia's relationship? Because she's badass to sit with you through this entire ride, man. I mean, you got a good catch there, kid.
I don't care how many billions of dollars I have. I would never make her sign a prenup, man. She's earned every penny. Seriously, man. I mean, you go from living in somebody's bedroom with their parents. So, now we have our own house and, pool, two wonderful dogs and a kid on the way. You can't. I can never trade that away, man. She's the rock star. And you need that as an entrepreneur. You need somebody you can talk to, whether it's your mom or your friend or somebody that can be your rock, or a therapist. It doesn't matter, man. Just somebody that you can really talk to, because you're going to get some dark spots. You're going to be like, okay, I can't really do this anymore. And then right when you say that, something's going to happen, and that something's going to be awesome. It doesn't matter. It's just when you're at rock bottom, there's nowhere else you can go, man. It can't get any worse. Literally can't. Unless you get hit by a plane, comes through your house, crashes into your house, and kills you. I mean, but even then you won't notice. So.
Well, and I think that if people will start realizing, if they just start climbing, right, all those experiences along the way are just preparing them for the next portion of their journey, man. And so fight through that shit and keep pushing.
No, I think that's the biggest thing about, entrepreneurs is a good name for it, is you've got these ideas, but if you never actually go and take action, and nothing's going to come of it, man. Nobody's going to come to you and buy your product, or buy your service. You've got to be a hunter. You've got to go out there, and that's your new fight, man. So you go from fighting to be in the military, to fighting to make money or fighting to do something. But if you're not taking action, and we've got a lot of guys that are idea fairies, or I need to go to 48 seminars and read 300,000 books before I start this business. No, maybe 2 books, 1 seminar, and then go figure it out. You'll make mistakes, but we all do. People will forgive you, and move on from there. But just take action. And
I would throw on top the only thing I'd add is go all in.
Yes, I forgot who said that. It's a lot. It takes a lot more energy to go 99% of the way than it does 100% of the way.
Right.
Because you got no other options. If you're going to go be an entrepreneur, figure it out.
Yeah, I heard it the other day is, what do you think when you opened your business? Were you planning on just starting a mediocre business? You either go all in or don't go at all. Man, brother, I got to tell you, thank you for sharing your story and getting as raw as you did. I really appreciate it. And I guarantee that there's people going to hear this story, listen to it, and you're going to change a few lives with that one, man. So,
awesome, man. They can feel free to reach out, go to my website or shoot me an email at Don@stoneburgmanagement.com, and that's STONEBURGHMGMT.com. I don't know if you do podcast notes, so you can put it in there.
Yeah, so all your contact information, your website, all of that will go in there, all your social things. So
yeah, have them reach out, man. I'd love to help that next guy, like you guys really did help me when I kind of transitioned out. So.
Well, we knew you were a tragedy case, so we felt sorry for you. And
why is this dude wearing a full suit? It's degrees out in July.
We did say that quite often. We did. Yeah. That's awesome. So here's how I like to wrap up every show, man. And so just be prepared that I usually catch some people that they're like, I don't know what the hell to say at this point. If you were going to leave my audience with a phrase, a quote, a slogan, something that they could take with them on their journey, especially something they can put in their toolkit when they're stacked up against it and they don't know the next move, what would be that phrase, quote, or saying you would say, use this?
Oh, that's easy, man. I've got 2 taped on my computer screen. I'll share 2 with them. One, I got this out of a fortune cookie, but it makes a lot of sense. So the simplest answer is to act. You know, no matter what you're doing, if you at least try to do something and you're not going to try it, you're going to go accomplish something. Mark that up for a win. You know, it's the small wins that get us places. It's not the big ones that's just gravy. It's the small wins that get you somewhere. And then next one is one bridge at a time. I read that in a book. I'm not sure which book, so I wish I could quote the person that stated it, but you can't do more than one thing at once. You can't multitask. You can only really do one thing at any given time. So accomplish that task one at a time, and then you're going to be much better off. So act, and then, you know, take it one task at a time.
That's awesome, brother. Dude, thanks a ton for being on the show. Thanks for sharing your story, and thanks for being you, kid. It's been good to have you on here.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks, Donnie.
Wow, that was just an awesome episode. What a freaking journey. Man, when you hear stuff like that, you just get goosebumps on the ride. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to this episode. Please do me a favor, comment on it. Let this person know how much you value their story, their information. Please share this with your friends. It would mean everything to me.